I do hope that you'll be excited to learn about motivation, personality, and emotion. In this chapter, we'll understand the nature of motivation, the role it plays in consumer behavior, and how marketers can use motives in developing marketing strategy. We'll understand the nature of personality, the role it plays in the consumption process, and how marketers can use personality in developing marketing strategy. And finally, we'll learn the nature of emotions and the role it plays in consumption processes and how marketers can use emotion to develop marketing strategies. First of all, let's talk about motivation. One of the most famous theories of motivation is called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I'm almost certain that all of you have been exposed to this theory in one class or another, and maybe in multiple classes. It's very, very famous theory. It's called a general theory of motivation because it explains a broad array of human behavior. At the bottom, for example, there are basic needs such as food, water, air, and so forth. And then after those needs are met, then you can move on to safety and security needs. And then after all this is secured and met in your life, then you can then take up an interest in social needs such as affection, friendship, belonging, acceptance, love, ego needs, and finally self-actualization. When all the needs below are met, then humans can move on to these higher level needs. So in countries or situations where people don't have sufficient food or water and so forth, then they have more difficulty moving up to these higher levels of needs because these have to be met first. That is the basic premise of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Interestingly, an interesting application of this general theory of motivation is in the advertising of milk, which is a basic need here in the food category, and moving it up to a higher level need by showing sexy, beautiful models drinking milk. So one approach for marketers is to move basic needs up to higher level needs, so fulfilling higher level needs. But in general, this is called a general theory of motivation because it explains a broad range of behavior. However, in marketing, I would like to present to you some mid-range theories of motivation that are actually not in your textbook, but they're much more useful to marketers because they explain a narrow range of human behaviors, unlike the broad range of a theory like Maslow's. And there are four very important mid-range theories of motivation that we'll discuss. Their mid-range theories are theories that explain a narrow facet of human motivation. General theories of motivation are broad and explain a broad array of human behavior. Maslow's theory is a general theory of motivation. However, there are four important mid-range theories of motivation that I want us to look at today. The first one is the opponent process theory, and this explains why someone would jump out of an airplane. This theory says that when a person receives a stimulus that elicits an immediate positive or negative emotional reaction, such as jumping out of a plane, two things happen. First, the immediate positive or negative response is felt. Second, a second emotional reaction occurs that has a feeling opposite to that initially experienced. The combination of the two emotional reactions result in an overall feeling experienced. For the parachutist, the first emotion is extreme fear. Then, after some period, this feeling declines and elation is experienced when they fall to the ground successfully and everyone's cheering them on. It's a simple theory with broad explanatory power, such as explaining drug addiction, cigarette smoking, jogging, marathoning, and so forth. It is the combination of the two strong emotions that is motivational. The positive and the negative together, or the negative and the positive together. So, for example, Felix Baumgartner's supersonic freefall, I'm sure, began with extreme fear, but ended in extreme jubilation. So the combination of those two emotions together are motivating for people, and they are motivated who enjoy doing that. They're motivated to enjoy that combination again and again, the fear and the jubilation, the fear and the jubilation again and again and again. And it does explain extreme sports for also. This theory can also explain debt from overuse of credit cards. For example, people make themselves feel better through credit card purchase, which is a positive emotion. I've gone out, for example, bought all the shoes I wanted. I'm so happy. Then the bills start coming. That's an extreme negative emotion. To combat the negative emotion, the consumer visits the mall again to make more purchases on credit. And so the back and forth, it's the positive and negative together that drives that person. The same with cigarette smoking. That positive drag on that first cigarette, and then the negative of withdrawing from it and not having it available, and then the going back and having it, and the positive and the negative, and on and on. Priming is a separate theory that emerges from this one. It's a smaller subset of this opponent process theory. It's called priming, and it is also used by marketers. An example of this is when you go into a store and they give you a taste test of a cookie or small piece of a candy, and it's the positive, it's so delicious, and then you walk away and you have a negative feeling because you really want to be in the presence of that positive stimulus again. So you want to go back and you get another one, and on and on and on. This is when you have a cake or pie in your kitchen out on the counter, and you have just one piece of it, and that's a positive, strong positive reaction. Then you walk away because you've said, I'm not going to have any more, and that's the negative feeling. And then to regain that positive feeling, you go back and you have another small slice of it, and then the negative from going away, and then back and forth and so on. And perhaps by the end of the day, you've eaten the whole cake or pie, and you hardly know the reason why. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that has done that. I hope that some of you have done that as well and can understand that. I'm going to let you go on your own time and look at that video. It's just amazing. Optimum stimulation level theory is our second mid-range theory, and it explains why we seek variety. This is defined as the person's preferred amount of physiological activation or arousal. The person's preferred amount of physiological activation or arousal. Individuals are motivated to maintain their optimum level of stimulation, and they take action to correct that when it becomes too low or too high. For example, some people like a lot of excitement and a lot of stimulation in their life, and they like to listen to loud music, watch scary shows, jump from planes, gamble, or whatever, drive fast, and so forth. And so they have this high need for a lot of excitement, stimulation. And then there are other individuals who have a low need for that, and they like a more quiet existence and less risky behaviors and so forth, quieter music and driving more slow and so forth. And so, but we all of us have individual differences in that, and we seek to maintain what feels good to us. And so when we get too overstimulated and we're not happy with that, then we take steps to bump back the stimulation, or if we're bored and the stimulation is not high enough, we take steps to drive up that level of stimulation for our own personal needs. And so one way to do that is through watching scary movies and so forth, and drinking caffeine is one way to bump that up. Scary rides and frightening movies and so forth, energetic movies and so forth, are ways to maintain a high level of stimulation. Another safer way to do this is through variety, seeking variety. So you can seek new spices, new seasonings. You can go there and look at the great variety that they have now. This is that person who needs a high level of excitement, but they don't want to jump out of airplanes or listen to fast music or watch scary movies. One safe way to maintain a high level of stimulation need is to seek variety. So you might have this brand variety this week, and that variety next week, and this variety over here on another week. So you are constantly switching varieties because it adds a little bit of excitement to your life. You might have different shampoos in your cupboard that you use, or different spices, or you switch brands of beer or different flavors and so forth. Different colognes, different lipsticks, that adds a little excitement, a little variety, but it's on the safe side, but it's still maintaining a higher level of stimulation need. Then we have a third theory called psychological reactance. And psychological reactance is a theory that explains what happened to us when our behavioral freedom is taken away from us. It's a negative emotional state when a person's behavioral freedom has been threatened. And you might say, how do marketers threaten your behavioral freedom? And that's when they take a product off the market that you've loved and has been dear to you, and all of a sudden they take that product is gone, and you're upset about that, and you want the freedom to participate in that product again. Let's suppose that I don't know if you're a Coca-Cola or Dr. Pepper person, but suppose you were and that product disappeared and you never could see that product or have that product again. You would have what's called psychological reactance. You'd become very agitated and very upset and very disappointed with that company for taking that. Suppose the iPhone disappeared. So see, you would have psychological reactance because you no longer have the access to that brand. And here are some examples. Crayola, when they tried to retire traditional colors, people got upset because those colors were missing and gone, and they demanded that the company bring them back. And the Hydrox cookie is another great example. Back in the 1908, it was a very popular cookie, and it had many loyal fans, but sales did not reach the level of Oreos. And Kellogg acquired Hydrox in 2001, and 2 years later, Kellogg pulled the Hydrox cookie off the shelf, and so fans have been pleading for its return ever since. One very brilliant way to use the idea of psychological reactance is to make your product scarce. Now, the McRib has done that. And it's where they bring, this is, if you go here and click through later on after you listen to the lecture and go back to the PowerPoint slide, you should click through to here, and it's a McRib locator, and it'll show you where McRib is currently located, which McDonald's in the United States. And so they bring that McRib for 6 weeks or so, and then they pull it off in the market in that area, and they move on to another one. And then people get really excited when they see it again, and so sales bump up because they get to see it again. They get to have it again, and then it goes away, and then they react and they want it, and then they look for it, and so they even have this particular website devoted to those in reactance. And finally, the fourth one is motivation to attribute causality. And this theory is simple. It just simply says people attempt to determine whether the cause of an action is internal or external. We do this all the time with companies and products. When something goes wrong with your product, we ask who did it. Did the company do it? Is it the product's fault? Is it my fault? Who did this? And so companies, as a rule, like for the blame to be placed elsewhere and not on them. For example, if a plane is late and it's due to the weather, people are not unhappy with the airline. But if they feel like it's the airline's fault for the delay, then they're angry with the airline. So companies are in a constant state of managing this motivation to attribute causality. And so you can, I just drag these from the headlines and put them into the PowerPoint. And these are examples of how people are constantly looking for causes and blame and so forth when things happen in our universe of marketing activities and experiences. We look, who did this? Whose cause? Who did it? People like to assign blame because it gives them a sense of control over their environment. So that's the underlying psychological reason for that. Switching now to personality. Personality is a characteristic and relatively enduring way that people have of responding to situations they face, which include responses to marketing strategies. Brands, stores acquire personalities, and consumers prefer brands and stores with personalities that they like. Marketers need to determine the personalities that target consumers find desirable for their products and stores, and then work to build up that personality. There are two common assumptions about personalities. All individuals have internal characteristics or traits. You and I both, all of us have personality traits that are internal to us, and they're consistent and measurable between different individuals. In other words, I can measure your personality, and you can measure my personality if you had an appropriate scale, and we can determine what our personalities are. This is a very famous theory of personality. It's called the 5-factor model of personality. It's discussed in your textbook, and these are the core personality traits that people have. The first one is extroversion, those people that prefer to be in a large group, talkative, bold. Some of you may be an extrovert, some of you may be introverts. Then there's instability. This is the moody, temperamental, touchy nature of people. agreeable people. Some are sympathetic, kind, and polite, and some are just simply not, and that is actually a manifestation of personality. Some are open to experience. They're imaginative, appreciative of art. These are your creative individuals, your creative souls right here. Conscientiousness is also a personality trait. It's those who are careful, precise, efficient. And then brands can also have personality. Research has found that brands can be sincere. This is the characteristics of a brand that's sincere. A brand can position itself as exciting, competent, sophisticated, rugged, and so forth. So brands can also take on any of these personality characteristics. But I tend to think these are more high involvement brands, but I could be wrong on that. Some of you might want to disagree. But I mean, for example, I don't see rice maybe or some canned beans and so forth. I'm just not sure where those sorts of things fit in here. So I'm tending to believe that sometimes this brand personality topic is more about experiences or services or high involvement products. But if you can think of low involvement products that are easily described here, I wish you would let me know. But marketers communicate, they design brand personalities through advertisement, and they communicate that personality through their visual imagery, through their words, through their lettering, and so forth. And I think we can look at these and decide what some of the brand personalities are that's being depicted and portrayed here. Of course, this Old Spice, this has definitely this characteristic personality is showing through here, exciting, daring, and so forth, masculine, and she's feminine and beautiful, and this one's mysterious and so forth. So it's easy to build in that brand personality with your visual imagery and your words. The nature of emotions. Emotions are strong, relatively uncontrollable feelings that affect our behavior. They're triggered by the environment. They produce physiological changes. This is changes in your body, like your blood pressure, your getting a red face, shaking hands, accompanied by thought, accompanied by behavior. And so I would like for you to know these four things. So if, for example, if you were very angry, if someone called you a bad name and told you something horrible to your face about yourself, that this would be an example of anger triggered by the environment. Maybe a colleague said something awful to you about your work. Then you might get a red face. You might have shaking hands, sweaty palms, and your eyes bugging out on stems because you're very angry. And accompanied by thoughts, you might be thinking some bad thoughts about your colleague. Well, you're not as smart as I am, and on things like that. And it might be accompanied by behavior. You might slam the door or toss something into the garbage can to get rid of that anger. And so this is the nature of emotion. So these four things are manifest in emotions. Emotional arousal can be used as a product benefit. In other words, a product that excites you, that builds up, makes your emotions real exciting, real happy, real amazing, and so forth. Emotion reduction can also be a product benefit, like this product, like home security devices will reduce your fear. Emotions in advertising can enhance attention, attraction, and keep the consumer maintain their attention. Can sometimes, with a lot of emotional advertising, it can be processed or thought about more thoroughly and maybe better remembered, those emotional ads. This is a technology that I'll let you look at on your own time, and go to that PowerPoint slide after the lecture and pull this up. Look at that. It's fascinating, this Activia. Affectiva. And it's a company that helps marketers to unmask the emotion of the consumers and to read their emotions. What do you think about that? What types of companies will benefit from unmasking consumers' emotions? Seems beneficial, does it not? Or maybe you disagree. Which demographic or social status group would appreciate this technology? Would this technology be best in a collective or individualistic culture? If a company could read emotions, what learning theory could be applied to teach these emotional consumers, and why? these are just thinking questions and things just to give you some food for thought and some interest in the lecture and the concepts that we've learned. And again, we're at the end. These are the key terms to omit. These are the review questions to omit at the end of this chapter. And finally, you should have an understanding of what motivations are and how marketers use them to promote their products. You should also understand how personality and emotions differ and how they impact consumer decisions.